We've been doing these RTK mocks. We've been alternating, weeks with mailbags and RTK mocks. So I think what we should do you guys like the situation where we give our three and then move on, or do we go 1-1-1,
Let's go
1-1-1,
one one
1-1?
one. Let's switch it up.
Okay, Connor. So since you want to go 1-1-1, how about you start?
All right. I'm gonna talk about Mizzou boy,
All
but
right,
not
fine.
the one people would expect.
Lay it on me.
Everybody's all about Nick Bolton for the entire draft class for the Mizzou defense. But there's another one on the Mizzou defense that was also very good, and his name's Tyree Gillespie. Also, the Drew Bledsoe is also very good as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Gillespie is really the one that I key in on when I'm thinking about the NFL. He was free safety for Mizzou, but in the NFL, I don't know if he can play like single high free safety. I think that would be a struggle for him a bit, but most teams don't really run a lot of single high. So, but he can be a really good cover two safety. And I think a cover two safety, kind of higher in the box guy, a Tyrann Mathieu type role for him would be really good. In Andrew Hunter's mock, he was picked at 136. I expect him to go sometime day 3, just because he's not a great athlete. His instincts sometimes lie to him. You can watch the film and you'll see some gaps in his game. But when he's on, he gets pretty on. I believe it was Brett Coleman talked about a game where he was covering Kyle Pitts basically one-on-one for the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
And he held him to like 2 catches.
Yeah.
So when Gillespie's on, he's actually pretty good safety talent. And picking him up in day 3, maybe to groom him as Daniel Sorensen's replacement, I really like that plan for the Chiefs.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite safety prospects. I really like him. I think that he has a higher ceiling than people think, and that's with the athleticism. And like Connor said, I think the perfect way to put it was his instincts do lie to him sometimes, but he's a smart football player overall. I think he has the tools, and he's just a playmaker. Like, I watched that Brett Coleman video too, and that was after I did my scouts. I already kind of had my opinion on him, and I was happy to see him as, like, I think he was the number 1 most underrated player. Maybe it was
of
reverse.
That video.
Yeah. So I like him, and I think that he'd be a pretty good pick.
I never really, because I watch Mizzou a lot. I'm a Mizzou fan, so I never really put the whole Kyle Pitts thing together when I was watching that game. It's funny how, like, sometimes you don't take that stuff, like, you don't notice that stuff in the moment, but like once you go back and watch it, it's like, oh, like, he actually played really well against Kyle Pitts. Like, Kyle Pitts wasn't a huge factor in this game. And we watched some Kyle Pitts film, or just some Florida film in general. Kyle Pitts, man, sticks out like a sore thumb. That dude is an insane athlete. And when you can have a safety limit him like Tyree Gillespie did, I think that he's going to be good at the next level. Did you say his RAS and I just missed it? It was like 6 something, right?
It was a 6 something, but I mean, it was a lot. He had a really bad broad jump. And sometimes I theorize when you see a really bad one, you just go, maybe this guy just sucks at doing that drill. Like, it's entirely possible that he's just like, he can be explosive, but just be a sucky broad jumper. But most everything was fine. He had a 7-second 3 cone. He had a great 40-yard dash at 4.43 with a good 10 split. He's a bit undersized for safety at 5'11. But I mean, like, overall, it was fine. Like, he's an NFL athlete. And with his tape, I think that's a good combination.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm with you. Jordan, why don't you give your first one, and then I'll give 2, and then we'll go back to Jordan, and then Connor will give his 2, and then it'll go back to you with 1 and me a 1. We're going to snake draft it.
Okay. I'm just going to try not to process what you just said, and I'm going to give
Fair
1.
Enough.
I have Drake Jackson. Tyler Sokin took him at 5'175". He is the interior offensive lineman from Kentucky. He has 31-inch arms. He's not tall. That guy's a center. Like, he's not going to be a guard at the next level. But I do think that he is a low ceiling but high floor prospect. Like, I think there's a few guys in the middle of the draft, him and Kendrick Green, I think, and either one of them could even go 3rd round, like earlier than most people think, where they're future starting centers and they could use a year to fine-tune the rest of their game. And the Chiefs are a perfect team to kind of present them with that opportunity, with Austin Blythe being there. The thing with Blythe's contract is, too, if they end up with a stud center or the rookie proves to be ready, they don't have to start Blythe. Like, he's not making a ton of money,
Right.
so I think they'd kind of get the best of both worlds with that, and not have to take like a Creed Humphrey at 63 or trade back from the first round or whatever they would potentially do.
Yeah, I like this class is pretty good for like depth centers. There's a lot of guys like Michael Manette and the few you mentioned as well. Drew Dowman's another one as well. And 31-inch arms is totally fine for center. I think Blythe has under 30-inch arms, so the Chiefs are obviously fine with that arm length at center. So I think adding one of these, and a lot of these centers are zone centers too, which is what the Chiefs would target. So I feel like a center will be one of the picks, and Drake Jackson's a good bet.
I think so too. You know, we measured my arms on Almost Entirely Sports live on the radio, and they were 27 inches. So not great for offensive tackle, but there was a reason I was a center in high school. Don't need to have those long arms to be a center. You're going to see a lot of these guys have shorter arms that are going into the interior. Really, the closer you get to the ball, the shorter the arms are going to be, which it's kind of funny, I think.
Less ground to cover.
Yeah, I mean, honestly. So I do like Drake Jackson. I think he's a good center. I like all centers, you know, Jack Anderson, a guy that I really like too. Because I'm partial, obviously. But I think on Saturday I'm going to be streaming on Roughing Kicker's YouTube channel. I'm going to be breaking down my high school highlight film. I think that's something that I will be doing during the hour and a half I will be taking questions, but then also breaking down my high school highlight footage. But speaking of better athletes than who I am right now, we're going to talk about Dylan Moses, the linebacker from Alabama. Dude is a really good athlete. When I watch him play, I think it's really exciting to think about him in the same system as Willie Gay. You know, coupling those two guys together, you'd have two big hitting linebackers. I think Jordan, I think you said this in your scouting report about him, that you think Moses is smart enough to play the Mike linebacker, and that would be pretty sweet, because Willie Gay, you know, we're not really sure what he's going to be, if he's going to be a Sam, if he's going to be a Will, if he could be a Mike. Wouldn't necessarily bank on him being a Mike, since he couldn't really grasp the system in the first year to Steve Spagnuolo's liking, but maybe that's just an overgeneralization on my part. But I think if you add another guy like Dylan Moses, who can kind of get the Spagnuolo type, Willie Gay type role treatment this year, kind of develop into that, you really do already have your linebacker snaps allocated. As much as we don't like to see a certain somebody out there, those are already allocated. Those snaps are already allocated. I didn't say his name.
That's fine.
I didn't.
We'll pretend he's like he who should not be named.
Yes. I didn't say it, but so I mean, if Dylan Moses can come in, learn the defense, I like this move. Kyle Henning had him at number 94. That is the third round pick, and I think that's kind of a perfect spot to take him.
You like at the end of the third? I think the big question with Moses is the injury. He tore his ACL, I believe it was, and we don't know exactly what it looks like. The NFL teams, of course, will know more about medicals and stuff like that. And it obviously affected him last year. I believe, he was playing last year, and he was not as good as he was pre-injury. But we saw Juan Thornhill was not as good as he was pre-injury last year, as he was recovering from his ACL injury as well. So it's hard to say. Athletes sometimes take a while to get back to 100%. If the Chiefs are fine with taking him on, trying to get back to the upside he showed pre-injury, it's going to be a nice pick. I do question, like you said, Tucker, where would he fit in the linebacker core? I'm fine with him playing, if he's pre-injury Dylan Moses, at any spot. He can play Sam, he can play Mike, he could even play Will. I think it would be a better Will than Anthony Hitchens, at least, or a better Will than he who should not be named. So it's hard to say exactly where, and it's hard to say exactly where he'll fall to in the draft as well. He's one of the wild cards of the draft. Another one actually is, funnily enough, Stone Forsythe, who we've talked about a bit. I've seen him go from UDFA to second round. Dylan Moses is one who's been second round to like fifth round. It's hard to say where he'll go. And with injury guys, sometimes I say they go lower than people expect. So we'll see. If he's at the Chiefs' fourth round pick, I think that's a turn in the card.